Ladies and gentlemen of the wireless, gather round. Tonight, our moral conundrum across the ether will resound. One noble blade, in legend now renowned, young Niezheng's mighty metal shakes the ground. When rulers sell their trust, injustice takes a fall. This valiant soul, we're told, must answer honor's call. By Jupiter, what a rip-roaring yarn we have in store. An assassin's path that opens freedom's very door. What price must honor pay when truth begins to fray? Through shadow and through steel, he'll carve his righteous way. This tale of blood and valor is a story worth your time. So settle in for an adventure most sublime.
Niezheng, a strong and diligent young man who wakes up early every morning to prepare for school. He doesn't wake up earlier than his friend, Dupo, who comes to his window and calls for him. Zheng lives with his sister, Rong, and his mother, Mrs. Ni. Rong assesses his brother's outfit and reminds him how his new style of Shang clothes upsets their mother. Her comment was throwing out, "Hey, you do you vibes." Zheng retorts that he's dressed for comfort and not fashion. On his way out, his mother implores him not to get into trouble. It is unclear why Zheng's father, Mr. Ni, is not in the picture. Maybe he passed away. Zheng is respectful and obedient to his mother. As he walked out to meet his friend, Dupo, Zheng forgot to close the door and gate behind him. Despite his humble demeanor, you can sense something bubbling underneath. Rage, perhaps. Zheng goes to Wuxia's sword mastery school. Class is in session. The students flank their teacher, Master Wuxia. Today's class, Embracing Change. Master Wu implores his students to be prepared to meet resistance from others who want to remain in the past. He advises them that, as early adopters of Shang clothes and iron weapons, they should expect to be dubbed revolutionaries. He reassures them that the days of bronze swords and long, flowy, loose and glamorous clothes are gone. The age of iron weapons and utilitarian garments is here to stay. After his cautiously worded speech, he has his students do their daily exercises. Amidst all this sweat and hard work, a young and beautiful woman, Xia Yang, saunters carrying a water-filled wooden bucket. Zheng quickly dashes to her side and helps her. Xia gladly hands over the bucket as she smiles at Zheng. It's more than an expression of gratitude. There is a flirtatious hint as well. He ferries the bucket the rest of the way. Zheng is not the only student who sees Xia's beauty. Tracking Xia is another student, Shu Shi. Wait a minute. What do we have here? I sense a rivalry brewing. Upon Xia's return with a second bucket, Shu makes his move. He shoots his shot and offers a helping hand, but Xia is well versed in his game. Shu Shi loses points for lack of creativity, and Xia respectfully declines the young man's assistance. Her body language impresses upon Shu that she is not interested in his advances in the least. Barely 5 steps away from Shu, Zheng swoops in, and Xia quickly and happily hands over the bucket. Oh my goodness, I was wrong. Xia's rejection of Shu is not about creativity, but about attraction. To Shu, the rejection stung. Observe how his jaw tightens and even closer, how his teeth grind. That is the face of a man who has lost and does not comprehend how or why. Master Wuxia calls an end to the class session. He announces that there'll be a tournament the next day and advises his students to get a good night's rest. While the other students disperse, Zheng lingers. And we all know why. He's waiting for Xia Ying. They walk out together, failing to notice Shu Shi lurking in the shadows, waiting and watching. This man is terrible news. Unaware of the storm brewing in Shu Shi's head, Zheng and Xia find a secluded area in the tall grass for their romantic date, and the couple open up to each other. Xia offered Zheng a metallic blue scarf with the embroidery of 2 phoenixes facing each other. They share their feelings and their dreams. Zheng talks about his aspirations of being a nobleman, marrying Xia, and the two living an opulent, wealthy life. With wealth will come the opportunity to fight for his country and make a name for himself. Xia, on the other hand, wants a simple, regular life. She's content with her peasant status with Zheng. Despite their young age, the two have a deep bond. Zheng loves his fantasy talks with Xia. She reminds Zheng of how happy he was when he was younger and how much fun they used to have then. But the older Zheng got, the sadder he became. Xia did not remember the last time she saw Zheng truly happy. As the evening ends, Zheng, being the gentleman, walks his date home. He escorts her to her gate, and there is a moment of an awkward pause and, oh, what was that look? Did Xia just undress Zheng with her eyes? Or was that an invitation? She bids her love interest farewell and watches him walk away. Zheng had not passed Xia's homestead's threshold when you guessed it. Our old friend Shu, waiting in the shadows, waltzed to Xia. He comments on Xia getting home late and presents a gift. It looks like Shu Shi has been waiting there for a long time. You have to credit him for being persistent, but he loses points for not following the gentleman rules of waiting for your competition to clear the homestead. Every gentleman knows that rule. She declines the pearly gift that he had put little to no effort into compared to the scarf she gave Zheng. Shu Shi refused to return quietly into the darkness, from whence he came. He blocks Xia's path, while promising that if she shows him favor, more gifts are awaiting her. Xia is unconvinced and reminds Shu that he comes from one of the wealthiest families in town, so it would never work between them. Zhang noticed the tension in his date, and interrupted Shu Shi's weak game to check on his girl. Shu is incensed by Zheng's interruption, accuses Zheng of imposing himself as Xia's protector. Before Zhang responded, Shu pulled up his scabbard, his hand on the grip, ready to unsheath his sword.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
Zhang masterfully de-escalates by offering to settle their beef at Master Wu's tournament. Zhu Shi may be a creep, but he's not a monster. He sees the logic in Zheng's proposal, and agrees to the terms. The next day, Zhu and Zheng appear before their teacher. They are the first contestants of the tournament. The two students kneel before their master as he reminds them of the rules. Zhu came prepared, his weapon unsheathed and covertly hiding it under his arm. Zhu eagerly waited for their teacher to finish dispelling the rules. He has no patience for formalities, and as they face each other to show respect before the fight, he leaps for an attack in a very unsportsmanlike fashion. Zhu's attack misses owing to Zhang's cat-like reflexes, which allow him to evade with a roll. Everyone is aghast at Zhu's erratic and aggressive behavior. But the fight continues. With Zhang recovered, he unsheaths his sword, and now the fight begins, proper. Zhang makes quick work of Shu. He disarms and knocks him down, making it clear to everyone that Shu has lost. Let's take a moment to look at that winning pose.
Nice.
With Shu fallen, Zhang respectfully bows to their master and turns his back on Shu to get a drink of water.
Isn't he dreamy?
Zhu, just like before when he couldn't accept Xia's rejection, refuses to wear his L with dignity and picks up his weapon. He charges at Zheng, a sneaky attack from behind. Xia screams. Zhang sees Shu attack from the water's reflection. Quickly, he turns, using the wooden bucket as a shield. Shu's sword thrust goes through the bucket. Zhang deflects it, then leverages the bucket to twist the sword off Shu's arm. All the other students stood, ready to defend Zheng. Master Wu interjects. The teacher condemns Shu's appalling behavior as he finds it unbecoming of a student of his school and expels him immediately. Shu turns away and, with a smirk on his face, departs. Something bigger is brewing, and only he knows about it. As for Zheng, Master Wu apologizes for the distress and commends him for his mastery of the sword skills he demonstrated. He decides that Zheng is his best student and gives him the sword of a legendary fighter and great emperor, Zhu Liu. He believes Zheng deserves the prize. Zhu runs to his uncle, the governor, and accuses Master Wu of radicalizing young men. Fraternizing with revolutionaries is illegal, but Zhu's uncle makes an exception for his nephew and accepts Zhu's excuse that he was taking Master Wu's classes undercover as his spy. The governor trusts his nephew completely. Zhu is only revealing the governor's perceived potential enemies and, by that extension, the enemies of the state too. He has no other motives, none whatsoever. The next day, Zhang and his friend, Du Po, return to school and find Master Wu riddled with arrows, leaning on a pillar. Upon closer inspection, Zhang Sifu was not leaning against the pillar, but was pinned to it as he was not alive. Before Master Wu's students can put their teacher's body down, Shu pops out from the bushes with a platoon of his uncle's men. It is a hastily planned assault that quickly turns chaotic. Zhang and his fellow students fought well, but unfortunately, Zhu had too many men with him. Master Wuji's school is overrun with soldiers, forcing the students to retreat. As they fall back, many students are cut down or fall to Shu men's arrows and swords. Zhang and his closest companion are on guard as they retreat. One other student, Shi Yuan, gets the full brunt of a sheaf of arrows. His injuries will only slow his friends, so he sacrifices himself, giving his two comrades time to escape. Zhu plunges the final strike that takes Shi Yuan down. Zhang gets home and rushes his mother and sister to pack their belongings. His sister, Rong, queries about her brother's panic state, but their mother cuts her off. She lets her daughter know that she knew this day would come. She understood the consequences of her son joining Master Wu's Wu Guan, so Rong and her mother make haste to gather their essentials. As they head out, Zheng contemplates asking his girlfriend, Xia, to accompany them. He runs to her residence's gate and calls out her name. Xia is nursing her sick father and fails to respond to Zheng. Outside, Zheng is pressed for time and scurries his mother and sister along. They disappear into the darkness. Just as they agreed as they fled from Master Wu's Wuchang, Zheng and Dupo met under the bridge in the middle of the night. Their clandestine meeting, of course, does not bode well for our creepy nemesis, Shu Shi. Speaking of Zhu, he is at his uncle's palace having a celebratory dinner after their successful raid of the sword mastery school turned revolutionary grooming den, or so the governor believes. Zhu receives praise for uncovering revolutionaries and stomping them out. Having had enough praise and drink for one night, Zhu asks to be excused, and his uncle bids him good night. The general asks if he needs additional security men to escort him. Zhu scoffs at the proposal while looking at his sword. He thinks highly of his skills, despite his loss at the tournament. Zhang and Du sneak into Uncle Shu's palace, avoiding the guards. Just as they are about to enter the inner court, they notice Shu leaving. They sneakily pursue him. As Zhu and his men disappear into a small alley, Zhang rushes around and ahead, via rooftops, while Du comes up from behind. Zhang comes down on them from the roof, raining furious anger upon these poor bodyguards. Before Shu realized he was under a two-person attack, Zhang had cut down all of his men. Shu's attempt to retreat to the palace is thwarted by Du blocking his way. Shu mocks Zhang by claiming that Zhang's sword game is so weak he needs his friend Du to face him. Zhang obliges Shu and commands Du Po not to interfere, only to ensure Shu has nowhere to run. All parties are in agreement. Shu is still delusional about his position and power, and retorts that Zheng was lucky in the first fight in Master Wu's dojo. Zheng takes his signature pose, hands wide open, scabbard on one hand and sword on the other. He attacks. Shu evades. Du can tell something is off with Shu's defensive moves. He advises Zheng that Shu is stalling. Zheng needs to end the fight. Quickly. Zheng sees it too. He shatters Shu's sword, leaving him unarmed. Zheng walks down a petrified Shu. Zheng cuts on Shu's fancy clothes, Zorro style. He judges Shu as a low-life murderer. Zheng and Du corner the poor sap.
No, wait.
Zhang takes no pleasure in taking Shu's life. The two friends flee the scene and agree that separating would be best. Zhang tells his friend he will be in the Qi state, where he sent his mother and sister. Du plans to stay with relatives in the Han state. A year later, Du had been living with Yen Chung, an officer of the court for the Han emperor, and training Yen's son in swordsmanship. Du kept reminding his uncle of Zheng, a better swordsman than him, and that he lived in Qi state. It would be worth a visit. Let's step back a little, to an earlier time, before Zheng took any sword lessons, before Shu made moves on Xia and was rejected, before he put a case on Master Wu's sword mastery school, and before he paid for it with his life. Officer Yen and Premier Han Kui would counsel the Emperor Han, Kui's nephew, on matters of the state. Premier Kui wanted the Emperor to ally their state with the Chun state, the second largest and most powerful of the 5 neighboring states. Officer Yen believes that Chun's leadership is unpredictable and untrustworthy. They have, on several occasions, turned against their allies. He believes that combining with the other smaller states to become one powerful state will create a stronger and more stable alliance. Kui counters with the idea that the Chun will not sit idly by while the Emperor makes these alliances. Any move they make will be an impetus for the Chun to attack. Yen agrees that it's a possibility, but it's better to risk it than allow the Chun to take over, as ultimately, that is what the Chun leadership does when allowed into any territory. Premier Kui is offended by Officer Yen's implication that his strategy will lead to the gentrification of his state. The Emperor quells his uncle's indignation, and Officer Yen is excused. Now, back to the present. There is still a stalemate between the Emperor's Han state and Chun state. The Premier yearns for a deal and holds a grudge against Yen for delaying his plans to grab power via an alliance with the Chun state. The Emperor still hopes for Officer Yen's approval and refuses to proceed. The Premier knows that Yen will filibuster any negotiations with the Chun state. He concocts a plan to remove Yen Chung from the negotiating table. He asks his most trusted general to find men who could not be traced back to him to raid Yen's home. Du interrupts the Premier's mercenaries and gives them hell. Ultimately, Du chops down all of the Premier's goons, but it comes at a price. Yen loses his son and nephew on that terrifying night. In Qi state, Zheng is allergic to regular life. He is a butcher by day, and, by night, he self-medicates with high doses of cheap wine. His sister attempts to reason with her elder brother. She acknowledges that their new life is not what he aspires to, but it's a good life. Rong asks her brother to think of their mother and pull himself together. Zheng sees the reason for his sister's pleas and agrees to stop drinking. The next day, Zheng is up early at the shop, serving his customers fresh meat. Not far from Zheng's butcher shop, former Officer Yen arrives at Qi State and takes a table at one of the local restaurants. Chaos brewed in the streets as local soldiers harass the small-time street vendors. Zheng will not allow these bullies to run wild, so he jumps in and convinces the soldiers of the error of their ways. After giving them a good beating, he commands them to provide restitution for the damage they have caused. His mother commanded Zheng to return to the shop, and he complied. From the restaurant, Yen witnesses the whole scene. A fellow patron of the same restaurant filled in Yen on Zheng's identity, bravery, sense of justice, and absolute obedience to his mother. Yen has seen and heard enough to be convinced that he is looking at the person his nephew, Du, spoke highly of before his death. He plans to make his approach. Yen does what most wealthy people do. He uses his money to introduce himself. While in a luxurious sedan chair Jiaozi, Yen has one of his assistants enter Zheng's family butcher shop and request that he buy all the meat on sale for that day. In return, Yen wants an all-afternoon meeting with Zheng. After the assistant presents a massive block of silver, Zheng agrees and informs his sister that he will be out all afternoon. At Mr. Yen's Airbnb, Yen and Zheng share a meal surrounded by servants, some of whom are part of a band playing live music. Is that his lifestyle, or is Officer Yen flexing? Zheng requests a more private setting. Yen orders his servants, including his assistant, to leave and asks his assistant to ensure no one enters. Zheng is eager to ascertain Yen's intentions, but the officer puts his charm on the young butcher. He compliments Zheng on his valor, bravery, and obedience. Zheng does not view those attributes as unique. Yen pivots and asks his guest if he still has the same aspiration as when he was a student at Wu's school. Sadly, Zheng states that his situation has changed. His mother is too old, and the move was hard on her. For the young former sword school student, it's a difficult time, and he has to think about his mother and sister first. Yen agrees with Zheng, but tells him to find a balance not to waste his best years. Zhang is frustrated with all the diplomatic talk and demands that his host speak truthfully and plainly of his intentions. Officer Yen confesses that he has big plans for the former student of Wu School. For now, he wants them to be blood brothers. Zhang is shocked that the offer is far too high for his status, but he agrees to be Yen's blood brother. Yen calls his assistant back, and the two prepare for the ritual to make them blood brothers. Later that night, when Zhang returns home, his sister, Rong, expresses her trepidation about Yen's proposal. Zhang agrees with her that such a rich and powerful man's attention will lead to nothing but trouble for them. Zhang assures his sister that she and their mother do not need to worry, as he does not plan to leave them. He promises Rong that as long as their mother is alive and she is unmarried, he will always care for them. Being blood brothers, Yen is just as concerned about Zhang's family's well-being as his own. The next day, Officer Yen visits Ni's family, bearing gifts, a set of chests Jingxiang filled with gold tails. He respectfully declines the offer, as even though they are of a lower social status, they make enough from the butcher shop to live comfortably. Besides, the Niate family believes only Zhang's life is their most valuable possession. Zhang's mother expresses her opinion in alignment with her son, and by accepting the far too generous offer of 2 overfilled gold chests, it may appear that Yen is purchasing her son's life. Yen understands the optics and asks his servants to take away the gold. He apologizes for his offer and asks Zhang's mother for permission to be with his son on his last evening in town. The tired mother accepts and heads off to the bedroom to rest. I have never seen such a strong display of integrity. Money is not everything. With a final toast, Officer Yen bid his blood brother farewell. As far as the officer is concerned, they would never see each other again. Several years later, on one lovely afternoon in Puyang County, Yen Chung was relaxing in his estate when his butler walked in and announced that the former officer had a visitor, Ni Zheng. Sure enough, with enough gusto to cause a tornado, Zheng walked in, a small white bag in one hand and his sheathed sword in the other. Yen is more than elated to see his blood brother. His face lights up as he welcomes and ushers Zheng into his house. Yen inquires about Zheng's mother and sister. Zheng's mother died about a year ago, and his sister recently got married. With 0 obligations, he had been seriously contemplating and decided he was ready and willing to do anything he asked of him. Sticking to his diplomatic nature, Yen still does not tell Zheng his plans. The former member of the court wants to celebrate their reunion. Let's pause to appreciate Officer Yen's sense of style. This man is killing it. Sitting across from each other while listening to a live band, the two shared drinks. With a laugh, he dismissed his band. After they left, Yen moved closer to Zheng. Yen reminds Zheng of their current political state. The Qi state is waiting for an opening to attack, or a weakness to exploit, while they will not engage in an open, full-scale war. Yen is concerned that the local politicians might surrender the state in exchange for money and power to the detriment of the people. Zheng surprises Yen by responding that he knows what the former officer wants. The assassination of the premier. Yen is impressed. But Zheng adds that he's aware that during his time as a member of the emperor's court, Yen was in a deep rivalry with the premier, and his dismissal from the court was contentious, to say the least. Yen explains his plans to have Zheng train the small army that he recruits. When their militia is ready, they will attack the premier and ensure his demise. Zheng uncovers a flaw in Yen's plan. Maintaining secrecy during the training of the small army will prove challenging. At some point, the premier will get word of the training and surmise Yen's plans. It won't be long before the premier hires an even larger army and attacks them. Yen's current plan has the same weakness as his old plan, which he ventured to the emperor when he had a position in Han's court. Both are long-term plans that fail to account for short-term pitfalls. That is why he was driven out of the emperor's court, and how he did not anticipate Premier Kui's devious treachery, which led to the merciless murders of his son and nephew, Du Po. Zheng offers a more strategic and small-scale option, far more likely to succeed, a one-man mission. Zheng mentions other assassins from the past who targeted corrupt leaders and went on to become legends. Yen also sees the value of a one-man mission, but fears the risks. As in all the examples Zheng brought up, the assassins paid with their lives. Zheng is prepared for the consequences and ready to leave the next day. The premier's palace is but a short ride from Yen's abode. Zheng insists his mind is made up and that they should celebrate tonight. Before he leaves tomorrow morning, pump your brakes, young blood. Yen advises Zheng to slow down, saying he should rest, even for a few days. Zheng worries that if he stays at his blood brother's place for too long, one of Yen's servants may snitch on them, putting a kibosh on their plan. Yen eases Zheng's worry by noting that his servants are loyal. They have worked for him for years. With that, Zheng and Yen relax, and the band returns to entertain them. Yen points out the band's lead singer, Chao Qin, and asks Zheng, a single man, for his opinion of her. Zheng concedes that she is a beauty. It's not long before Zheng is whisked away into the current of opulence and all manner of indulgence. The partying is short-lived. He longs for his true love, Xie Ying. Unable to shake her off, he sees her face everywhere he looks. Unable to wait any longer, he clears his room and asks one of the girls to send Yen to come and see him. Early in the morning, Zheng and his blood brother Yen had breakfast, a somber moment, while they enjoyed music from the live band, which matched the sadness that filled the air. Even Chao Qin, the lead singer, got teary-eyed at Zheng's departure. At the song's end, a white horse was brought to him. Dressed in an all-white outfit and armed with a black and gold sword, Zheng mounted the horse and galloped into the sunrise. Embodying the image of the White Knight he aspired to be for his people. Back in Zheng's hometown, Xia Ying answers the door. A stranger confirms her name and quickly delivers 2 sets of bolts of silk. Xia's questions are ignored as the deliverers depart from her home. Xia rejected the delivery, seeing a possible mistake, but the delivery person was straightforward. He protested that his customer's instructions were clear. As the second delivery crew left, they bumped into the third group of delivery men ferrying a large jewelry box. He made sure to impress upon Xia that the jewels were the best money could buy. Xia's inquiry regarding the identity of the person who hired them is met with incredulity. How do you not know who sent you such an extravagant gift? She is left racking her mind as to the identity of her mysterious benefactor. Xia has no time to rest when another man arrives at her doorstep. She is short with this delivery man. However, he delivers a message instead. The message: someone wants to see you. Naturally, Xia declines. The messenger mumbles that his customer expected Xia's reluctance as he unveils what he is hiding inside a yellow silk wrap. It's the blue scarf with 2 phoenixes facing each other, wrapped around a black sword with golden adornments. Immediately, Xia knew it was her only love, her soulmate. Ni Zhang. Xia rushes outside, past the palanquin. The messenger stops her and redirects her to her ride, which was meant to take her to Zheng. Xia rushed into her lover's arms, a meeting that had been a long time coming. They returned to the same place they used to meet years ago, when they both had glints in their eyes and hopes in their hearts. Xia first wants to know how Zheng made all that money. Zheng outlines his plan to carry out an assassination and how he will not return when he leaves. The news is distressing for Xia. She finally has the love of her life back, but only for a short time. Xia weeps and throws away the jewelry. She would rather have Zheng than all the money in the world. Zheng comforts his soulmate, but urges her to see his point of view. He is seizing an opportunity to make a name for himself, an opportunity to become a legend. Zheng asks about Xia's father, who had been a carpenter most of his life, but had become a drunk when he retired. Zheng wants to distinguish himself. He believes living a quiet, everyday life is not for him. He has ambition and is willing to make the ultimate sacrifice for it. Zheng asks Xia not to cry, but to make the best of their little time left. He offers to walk her home. Xia agrees with Zheng that their time is limited. Countering his offer, Xia proposes they go to his place. He responds with a subtle nod. We all know what that nod means. Once they arrive at his place, Zhang takes a page from Officer Yan's playbook. The two are enjoying dinner with live romantic music. Zhang engages in small talk about how the rich know how to live. Xia counters that a luxurious lifestyle comes at the expense of others as she looks out to the all-female band a stone's throw from them. Zhang retorts, stating that there is no other way to live in luxury than at the expense of others. Xia realizes her lover is heading on a suicide mission, so antagonizing him is pointless. She asks Zhang to dismiss the band so that they can be alone. She heads to the bedroom and undresses. She innocently beckons for Zheng's loving arms. It dawns on her that she should be in the moment and enjoy each second, as it may be the last. The longer one lives and accumulates missed opportunities, the more bitter one becomes. Zhang approaches her and tenderly embraces his lover for a night of pure bliss. The following day, Zheng says a deep and sorrowful farewell. They both agree that even though their time together was short, they are happy to have met each other. Xia escorted Zheng to his horse and watched as her white knight rode into the sunrise. Outside the premier's castle, an assassination attempt is foiled, and the perpetrator is surrounded. The premier orders his general to find the assassin's mother and sibling on the account that his father is dead. The assassin accuses the premier of selling out to the chief state, a deal that will lead to the suffering of many people. The premier laughs at the assassin. Kui looks down on the wannabe killer. He views the peasant as incapable of understanding the nuances of the political game played at his level. He uses the captured assassin as an example to warn others not to follow in the peasant's misguided footsteps. He has the general carry out a public execution of the entire family. As the general carries out the order, Zheng heads to the nearest lodging. With his expensive bright white outfit and the air of nobility he exudes, merchants scramble to serve him. One servant takes Zheng's horse, while another takes his bags. The one with his bag leads him to a room and presents it, claiming it's a fine room. Zheng takes a peek inside and turns away. The servant nervously smiles and moves on to another room. He explains to Zheng that it is one of their finest rooms. Zheng scans the room and then the servant. After the assessment he waltzed in. The young assassin has captured the mannerisms of the noble class perfectly. Zheng asks the reason for the commotion earlier. The attendant summarized the botched assassination followed by the poor peasant family's execution. Speaking of assassinations, the servant asks for Zheng's traveling papers as the city is on high alert. Zheng keeps his calm, just as he did when Shu challenged him to duel many moons ago. He looked the servant dead in the eye and asked, "Do I look like an assassin?" The attendant quickly backtracks from his line of questioning and, in turn, apologizes for such an insulting insinuation of someone from a good and maybe powerful family. Zheng revealed that he was an official from Qi State on a secret mission. He adds that he has official papers, but he cannot let a commoner see them. He ordered the servants to prepare their best food, leveraging their greed. He promises a substantial reward if the food is indeed the best. As usual, you cannot have a meal without listening to live music. Outside, the general is patrolling when he meets Zheng's attendant. He asks the attendant if he has seen any suspicious characters checking into his lodge. As you know, if you see something, say something. The servant vehemently declines as he excitedly confides in the general about his interaction with Zheng. He believed Zheng's cover story and sold it to the general. Of course, the general is intrigued. Just as he is about to sneak a peek into Zheng's room, Zheng steps out. On seeing two shifty silhouettes in the darkness, he demands an explanation for the commotion that has disturbed his peace. The servant introduces the general, who, with a bow, explains his concerns about the presence of dissidents planning to disrupt tomorrow's conference. Zheng pivots and talks about the general and how his reputation precedes him. He implies that even in the chief state, he is known to be loyal and most trusted. Zheng cuts the interaction short by commenting that they will meet at the conference. He darts back to his room. The general, from the brief conversation, concludes that Zheng is legit. He forces the attendant to pay extra attention and make sure Zheng gets the white glove treatment. While Zheng enjoys his music, his sister Rong is journeying back to their old stomping grounds. Lucky for her, she meets Xia, who recognizes her, stops and picks her up. They head back to Zheng's new home, which he left for Xia to catch up. Xia started with the heavy news. She is pregnant with Zheng's child. Xia had planned to visit Rong, but Zheng's sister beat her to the punch. The sister was more in the dark about Zheng's assassination/suicide mission. Tired and frustrated, Rong took it out on Xia. If she was in love with her brother, why could she not convince Zheng to abort his mission? Xia reminded Rong how stubborn and steadfast her brother was once his mind was made up. Stopping Zheng was an insurmountable feat. And even if she had convinced him to live a mundane, eventless life and abandon his dream, it would have made Zheng bitter and resentful. Early the next day, the Emperor, Han, and his uncle, Kui the Premier, wait in the shade. A battalion? No. A regiment? No. A brigade of soldiers guards them. Security is tight. As they wait, the Premier nervously gives his nephew tips on diplomatic exchange and negotiations. The tension was high. To the Premier, a lot was riding on this first meeting. Zheng approaches the main entrance. Of course, the guards stop him. He is in an all-red formal hanfu with gold-patterned trim, selling his nobility and importance. He announced to the soldier blocking his way that he was carrying a gift from his king for the Emperor. The general notices Zheng and orders his men to let him pass. The general led the way to the Emperor and the Premier. He even introduced Zheng as an emissary from the state of Qi. Sadly, if anyone bothered to ask Zheng for his traveling papers, our swordsman would not have gotten this far. This shows that people's greed for power and money allows them to make the most terrible mistakes. Remember, folks, fine feathers don't make fine birds, I know. Cliché, but it is a cliché for a reason. At the conference, Zheng appreciated the general's kind introduction. He asked for permission to present the gift. The Premier is eager to clear formalities. Zheng takes one knee and presents the case. The Premier takes off the lid to reveal its contents. It is Zheng's golden sword. The Premier was stunned, paralyzed. Before it registered to Kui that kneeling before him was his Grim Reaper, Zheng grabbed the sword and started swinging wildly at first. The Premier ducked and scurried away. Zheng cuts down the soldiers closest to him. Zheng drove away the extra soldiers and had the Emperor in his sights. The poor young man is so rattled that he practically falls on Zheng's paws, on Zheng's true edge. Zheng removed his red hanfu and threw away his scabbard. We can all agree he did not have plans to sheathe his sword ever again. And so, the slashing and cutting continue. The Premier retreated into the castle. Our favourite assassin chops at the wooden poles holding the large canopies, which were providing shade to the Emperor and Premier, to trap the soldiers. With one giant leap, he goes over the high castle wall and is on the roof. The soldiers scramble to the castle's entrance while Zheng lands on the open entryway. There were more soldiers. Old man Premier was surrounded. This is going to be a challenge for Zheng. The former Master Wu student puts in that work, slashing, cutting, parrying, and kicking. The Premier is astounded by Zheng's tenacity as he retreats to the inner court. Before his bodyguards can lock the gates, Zheng squeezes through and locks the large consignment of soldiers outside. Things look grim for the Premier. With little to no resistance, Zheng cuts through the Premier's men like a storm through barren land. Outside, the general is devising a strategy. He orders his archer to be ready and the soldier to break through the inner court's gate. Inside, Zheng and the Premier are the only ones standing. The Premier is forced to unsheath his sword. He tries running from Zheng, but there is nowhere to flee. The assassin taunts the Emperor's uncle with wild swings that are easy to evade. Premier attempts a stab that Zheng overdramatically avoids with a roll. The Premier is cornered, loud banging from soldiers breaking down the large doors. The Kui's only glimmer of hope, he needs more time. Sadly, he is out of options. A basic strike from Zheng will end the crooked politician. But our assassin friend delays making a killing blow. Why does he hesitate? Is he savouring the moment? The soldiers break down the wooden gate and barge into the inner courtyard. Premier Kui was relieved. His backup protection was here, but the soldiers were tentative. They know a superior fighter when they see one. Zheng is surrounded. He squandered his opportunity earlier to end his target. He hopped about from stair to stair, from wall to wall, hoping to get back on track. At one point, he confronts the general. He justifies his rank. He is no slouch with a sword. His formidable force drove Zheng back and gave his men the fortitude to attack. Unfortunately, our assassin recovered and punished the few men who dared to venture an attack when he was retreating. Everyone paused. Zheng was on one side of the court and his men on the other side surrounded the Premier. A small chasm between them. The Premier ordered his men to flank and surround the intruder. All Kui's men respond at once and rush at Zheng. In the heat of battle, they failed to see the folly of a rush attack. A system that grants much power to one or a small group of people always has an underlying weakness. The system's weakness is on display in the Premier's defense. In their eagerness to comply with orders, the soldiers fail to keep track of their numbers to ensure some of them cover the Premier. The Premier stood across from Zheng without protection. Zheng seizes the opening in the Premier's defense and does a Superman. He flies over the chasm and stabs Kui. The Premier falls, his body is lifeless before his head, and the heavy crown he wears hits the ground. The soldiers, led by the general, rush to the Premier's body. They make the same mistake that led to the Premier's death. Zheng looks back at his handiwork and leaves the scene. Archers perched on the roof outside the inner court shoot arrows at the assassin. He deflects them. Before they can fire a second round, the general intercepts them with new orders. They need Zheng captured, alive. Considering the speed at which Zheng dispatched men, the general gave a tall order. Some soldiers mustered the mettle to attack. Zheng headed for the castle's outer wall, but the archers drove him back to the center of the courtyard, closer to the men with weak bronze swords. Zheng leaned on a pillar. Cutting down an endless barrage of soldiers could weigh down on a man. He was losing steam. The soldiers wait to see what Zheng will do next. This young man in white entranced the Premier's men. Zheng looked around, and it was clear there was no way out of his predicament. He took his sword and turned it on himself. A stab and deep slash across his midsection.
Come on now, dawg. Come on, man.
At the naval level, the general will not make it easy for the assassin. He orders his men to stop Zheng from carrying out Shengguo. In his weakened state, Zheng still mows down any soldier who approaches. They all pause again. This time, the soldiers watch in anticipation as Zheng pulls out a blue, blood-stained scarf, the same scarf he received as a gift from Xia during happier, blissful times. With the blue scarf no longer stopping the bleeding, the soldiers witness the full extent of Zheng's self-inflicted injury. They are amazed that he can still walk. In a final act of defiance, Zheng takes the steel sword to his cheek. We are left to speculate about the hack job he performed on his face. Days later, outside the castle, guards stand by the entrance. In an open area, a body is covered with a white sheet. People from nearby gather around a newly erected sign. Xia and Zhang's sister, Rong, arrive. They too read the sign. There is talk about the assassin killing over 100 men before killing the Premier. Xia looks at the body and notices the blue scarf she gave Zheng. Her worst fears are confirmed. Some passers-by reading the sign speculate as to what kind of man would do such an act. But Xia and Rong knew very well what it took to carry out the assassination. Xia could not bear listening to strangers discuss Zhang's spree and his possible motives. In addition to the comments of the mysterious assassin mutilating his face to avoid identification, and the government retaliating against his family or friends, Xia nearly collapses. Rong comes to her side, offering support, and they head home. While Xia is overcome with emotion, Rong calmly sews. She asks Rong if she is making a mourning dress, and wonders how Zhang's sister can remain level-headed about such grief. Rong confessed her plans to claim her brother's body. Xia was shocked. She knew what awaited anyone who affiliated themselves with the assassination of a government official. Rong explained her reasoning. She knows that Zheng committed facial mutilation to protect them. She knew her brother wanted to be a legend, but always prioritized his family. Xia wants to join Rong, but she declines the offer. Being pregnant with Zheng's child is another way to carry on his legacy, and Xia knows Rong is right. The following day, Rong approaches the body still outside in the sun. Was it there the whole time? Decomposition must have started to set in. The soldier stops Rong and inquires about her intentions. She asks to identify the body. She knelt next to Zheng's corpse. She peels back the white sheet covering her brother's body. One glance, and she knew. She composed herself, and then stood. The soldier close to the body asks if Rong knew the assassin. Rong turns to the crowd and exclaims her brother's name, Ni Zheng. She proclaims that Wei State in Qinli province was their home. She proudly asserted the Premier Han Kui was planning to betray the people for power and greed. Ni Zheng killed the Premier to stop the treacherous deal and to warn those planning to betray the country. When the soldier inquires about Rong's identity, she replies that she is Zheng's sister as she pulls out a small dagger. As the commander orders his soldiers to seize her, Rong follows in her brother's footsteps and finalizes her rebellion with a Shengguo. As she falls next to her brother's body, the soldiers focus on keeping the gathered crowd at bay. On the other side of town, Xia walks back to where her love story with Zheng began. Picture: a hopeful but sad Xia surrounded by a spray of blossoms. The contrast between Zheng and Xia highlights the tension between living for legacy and living for love. While Zheng achieves the legendary status he craves, he sacrifices a life with the woman he loves and his unborn child. The story asks us which immortality truly matters, one of historical deeds or one that lives on through family.
Well, that are my biscuits, folks. What a hard trencher. Ni Zheng's sacrifice, Xia's sorrow, a hero's tragic fall in a world askew. Did this epic of courage and what might have been stir your soul? Then don't be a stick in the mud. Hit subscribe, spread this tale, and drop us a line. Stay snazzy and remember, the best pictures are the ones we paint together.